Littleton and welcome. I'm Mark Crory, the Executive Director for Littleton Community Television, and I'm pleased to be joined today by George Sanders, local resident here in town and also an activist. George, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and the reason why we're sitting together today is because February is Black History Month, and we last sat down in 2019, if you recall, and had a very nice conversation about some of the history of Black History Month, some of the things that are important about the month, and just a good dialogue about racial relations in not only the country but in the town. Well, that was 2019, and as you know, a lot has changed since then, and especially with the emergence of Black Lives Matters and things like that. And so I thought it'd be good to have another conversation, just to find out, first of all, how you feel about how things are now, 3 years later, in as far as racial relations and that kind of thing in the United States and in Littleton.
Well, I think that first and foremost that, as you say, a lot of things have changed. Pacific, a lot of Black lives have been lost. There's been a lot with the police forces across the country. Seemed like it was always, every time you turn around, some Black person was being shot by the police, whether they had a weapon or not, or whether they was running away from the police, they had nothing. I recall the one down in, I believe it was Georgia or Alabama, where the person was running away and the cop just kept firing away. I mean, I think he unloaded his weapon in him, and I think there was something like 9 to 10, 11 bullets that killed the individual. But I think the most important thing is that there's been a lot of progress along the way as well when we look at Black people in terms of being elected into Congress. We have the first Black I guess they called him of the minority, that's in the House of Representatives at Jeffrey from New York. He's the first Black that's ever held that position. So that was a big issue in terms of getting appointed to that position. A lot of positions that are in government, they don't come easy, especially when it's the opportunity to appoint anyone. When Blacks sort of kind of get the opportunity to go there, I mean, you look at the number of years that the Congress has been in existence, and you've had the two parties of the majority and the minority, never had a Black. I think Claiborne is he's the highest and the longest running representative in the House, which is from South Carolina. And of course, he was in number 4 position.
That's your home state,
That's
right?
my home state, yeah. And I guess, he really had no desire to move up the ladder. They tried to knock him out of that 4th position, but he came back and they voted him right back in, and he's still in the 4th position. I don't know what it is about that 4th position, but it must be a position that he really enjoyed being in, that's for sure. So we have a lot of stuff that's taken place. I mean, you take like New York now, in their General Assembly, there in New York, they got Black leaders that's in the position as the head of the party for the Democrats. They just had a conference down in New York, maybe it was a month ago there, that they had all these Black officials, I mean, that was in all these key positions throughout there, and with the Attorney General and the mayor of New York City there, which he was a captain in the police force there, the guy elected. I think that, you know, some extraordinary things that have taken place with black people being put into what I call key positions that should have been there for a long time. But
now, do you feel that some of those things would have naturally happened because people are becoming, I don't know, I guess less racist as far as looking at the color of people's skin? Or do you think that Black Lives Matter had a hand in making people more aware of racism in the country?
Well, I think Black Lives had a key role into letting people know in this country and around the world what black folks has been confronted with over the years and going back to slavery time. I believe my history is correct. The first black senator that we had was from Mississippi that was elected. I mean, you know, that's a southern state. I mean, Lord and behold, I mean, having a black there in Commerce from Mississippi, I mean, it's almost like unheard of, you know. But
well, you know, you've been up here in New England for a number of years, and do you see a difference in the way minorities, especially black people, are treated in the North as opposed to the South?
yeah, there's a I won't say it's a distinct difference, but there is a difference, and I think that now that in the South, you find that the Caucasian race is more apt to treat blacks with dignity and respect compared to the days of yesterday. I mean, it's like, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, thank you, ma'am, you all come back again. You know, it's a tremendous difference there in the South. And when you talk about it in the North, it's sort of kind of more or less casually. There's not really that big difference between the races. I see is that people just sort of kind of, you know, they don't show it like some people that are still in the Deep South still shows that grudge, you know. And up here, it's just sort of kind of, in the North, it's just sort of kind of casual like.
Right. Well, we have a lot of other ethnic groups up here too, besides just whites and blacks. There's all sorts of different ethnic groups. I think it's important to have dialogues like this, you know, every once in a while, because there are hard questions out there. And, you know, when Black Lives Matters came to the forefront, it was mostly because what we saw on TV were a lot of violence, a lot of riots, a lot of, you know, now I don't know if those were just the things that the news wanted to show us, but, you know, some would say, I agree with Black Lives Matter, but I don't agree with the method of violence. And would you say that that's your opinion, or would you say that it's sometimes you have to, as others have claimed, to really get your attention of things that had to happen?
Well, I think there are things that had to happen in order to get the attention, and I think that what it showed was that we have a police force in this country that has a tendency, they're supposed to be the law to protect all citizens. We're not doing that. We found in most cases that they was the criminal that was causing the damage and the killing. And
now, again, just like you wouldn't want to paint, like, for instance, the statistics show that there are more black men incarcerated in in prison than whites. But I wouldn't want to say that black people are criminals, because that's not a fair assessment, right? Just the same with police officers. Yes, there are bad police officers, but not all police officers are bad. In fact, the majority are probably good.
No, they're not all, but what I'm saying is that the likelihood is that they're criminals when they're out there and they know that they're breaking the policy of the department, doing something that they know that they ain't supposed to be doing. And when you're doing that, then it shows. Here's the point that people tend to forget. We always said, a lot of said that, you know, with this internet and everything, you know, it's the enemy, you know. But I'm going to tell you, that internet is a true factor that shows it and tells it, and it's there quicker than the news. The news is sucking behind technology when it comes to that, because everybody got these cameras, YouTube, et cetera, you know, it's up there. You got so many hits on it so quick and fast. You know, the news is not falling behind what is being reported by people there on the street as to what's taking place. For instance, I think it was in New York, they kept telling the cop to get off his neck, get off his neck, get off his neck. And, you know, he just kept, you know, putting his knee on the neck there. Well, the thing is, you know, you seen that live right then and there, and what was going on before the cameras and before the police was really wearing cameras, because a lot of stuff was being hid as to what, and to include when they put them in the police cars and so forth and so, you didn't get the true picture of what really took place. But now, you know, there are people there with the camera instantaneously, you know, reporting, and they pass it on, and you see exactly what happened. So we have a lot of...
I just want to stop you there for a second. You say you see exactly... I'm just kind of play devil's advocate for a moment. Exactly what happened. Sometimes we don't see exactly what happened. We see what is posted. You know, we don't see the whole clip. And, you know, there's been instances where you see something, you're like, that is horrible. But then when you see the context of what escalated to that point, then it becomes clear. I didn't say it became right, but it becomes clear as to there's more to the story than sometimes what you see.
Well, I'll back up and rephrase that. In certain portions of reporting, you see exactly what took place. And based upon that, it's like when the authority end up reviewing it, they sort of kind of confirm that is what really transpired there. And the thing is that they have a tendency that they try to, I guess, weed out the bad and try to put the premise there that, you know, there's always good in everybody. I always think, irregardless who you are, I think there's good in criminals, you know. But I think at the same token, society as a whole is something that, you know, that's society. You know, we can't change it. Only thing is that it takes enough people to go against the grain, and then it gets changed. But until then, society looks upon it as being there. And as you well know, there's people saying, you know, defund the police, defund the police. Well, I don't believe defunding the police is the answer to any problem, because we need police. We need the protection. We need people to understand that there are certain things, if you are the law, there are certain things that you should do, ensuring that you don't violate people's rights. Because that's the reason they have to read your rights. You know, when there's something, and, you know, if you don't and you want a lawyer, then, you know, they can't force the issue for you to do that. They got to get you the lawyer. But I think that the Black Lives Matter came to the forefront because black people has gotten fed up with the fact of the killing and the shooting, and sometimes why you shoot, he wasn't doing anything, why you go there and you start shooting into an apartment and not answering why you did what you did.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is something that was brought up. Martin Luther King, of course, leader in the civil rights movement, and his method of protest was peaceful, and it worked.
To a certain extent.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would say, we agree with Black Lives Matters, but why can't we do it in a peaceful way? Do you think that it just got to a point where people, like you said, were just fed up, and just, maybe a new generation doesn't think the same as Martin Luther King's generation, as far as getting their voices heard?
Well, that's very true. The generations that you have today of yesterday, just like night and day between those generations. And you have a lot of young people that's involved, and there are a lot of hotheads that's involved. And even though that there are those that trying to keep it calm, but you got certain people. The thing that I disown and dislike about Black lives being involved in is that the looting, the robbery, breaking into people's stores. I watched one day in New York where that they got the license plate on camera. They disfigurated where you couldn't see it, but you could just see his license plate, and where people would go in and they come out with armloads of stuff and they put it in the car, and they're driving away with it. Like, you don't think you're going to get caught, by doing this. That type of stuff.
It is true. It's also true that most of the people probably doing that maybe weren't even aware what Black Lives Matter is. They're just an opportunity to, there's a riot going on, let's go down and get some stuff, And
when you saw it on television, at least it was people of Caucasian color, like. Right. It wasn't black people.
Just
I mean, there was some black people doing it too.
They're just thieves. It doesn't matter what color they were.
Yeah, it was just an opportunity, right. Get in on it, and and get this stuff, and think that you're doing something big. I mean, I just don't understand why people don't understand. There's a price to pay to the consequence.
Yeah.
And a long time we find that in Black lives that we have struggled through so much and been through so much. It's like sometimes it's like they don't understand what it is they say, the have and the have not. Well, I understand what it is to have and to have not, because I've been through that. I grew up in that. I grew up in segregation, and I know what segregation was like. But the truth of the matter is, when you hear the word segregation, people right off the bat just get that opinion that, segregation was all bad. Segregation was not all bad. That was good, and that will always be good, no matter what it is.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because some people want to say everyone should just be colorblind, and in a way that is correct. You just want to look at someone as a human being,
right?
And like Martin Luther King said, you judge someone on the content of the character instead of the color of their skin. Well, that is true, but we're not colorblind. I recognize that you're not the same as me as far as the color of our skin.
Right.
And as soon as I can appreciate the fact that you're going to have different struggles than I do, and recognize that and not ignore it, still treat you with dignity, respect, as all humans should be, but also realize that you've got a history, you've got things that have played a factor in who you are, whether it's direct experiences or experiences of ancestors, and your comments on that?
Well, I always said that there's good in everyone, and we need to take that and understand that. a long time we don't understand when we said there's good in everyone. There is good in everyone. You may have a different perspective about something versus what someone else has, but that doesn't mean that person is wrong and that you're right. We ought to be able, and which is difficult to do sometimes, is to agree to disagree. And I think that the more that we understand that it's okay to agree to disagree, I think we educate ourselves about different perspectives about different things. And growing up in segregation, you hear people call you out of your name as a nigger, you know, or whatever the case may be. But there was also those people that treated you with dignity and respect. And I can tell you that where I grew up in Pendleton, South Carolina, there was very few people that I heard call me a nigger. I recall one individual just coming right out, and I overheard him tell the person that I was working for, the boss that I was working for, and he said, "Why don't you get rid of those nigger boys and get you some white boys?" So I went on and did the work that had to be done, you know, for him and everything. And I was working at an appliance store, which also had a recapping tire place that was there, and we was putting tires on. So when I got the chance, after he left, I asked the boss. I asked him, was he going to do what he said? He said, "What are you talking about, George?" I says, "I heard Mr. whatever his name was at the time say, why don't you get rid of the nigger boys and get you some white boys?" He says, "Oh, George," he said, "don't worry about that." He said, "But if you really want to know what I told him," I said, "Yes, sir, I would like to know what he told." I told him that if he didn't like doing business here, take his damn business somewhere else. So,
well, that's good. There are people out there that would take a stand at that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that, you know, it really made me feel good to know that I was working for someone that had, because they always treated me with the utmost respect, you know, and I always, I'm talking about, I'm a kid that's in the 5th grade, 6th grade that was working, you know, part-time, and I always respected, his name was J.P. Gamma. I always respected Mr. Gamma because he was a very knowledgeable person, and he taught me a lot of things that I know today and that I'm able to do today was under his leadership. And I didn't know it at the time, but when I grew up, and from time to time when I went back, I found that our town was a small town. It wasn't that large in population, but the thing that kept that town knitted together was something that I didn't know, and it was that the Masons in that town kept that town knitted together. They was in the grocery stores, they was in the hardware stores, the gas stations that we had there, the other business there, the dealership that was there, and so forth and so on. And I knew this building next door upstairs, you know, it had this sign up there, but I didn't pay that no attention. I used to go into the brown 5 and 10 cent store there and get this quarter-pound baby roof. It was 25 cents. And we would come back out there. I worked with his son. I worked on bicycles a lot at that time and never knew any of that stuff. But I come to learn that they extended credit. I'm sure that it was white as well, but they extended credit to black people. They had a running list of credit that people owe. I'm sure when they died and when they closed up the store, there was black people that still owed them.
So let me ask you this question, because I just heard recently on the news, San Francisco, I think it was, is thinking of spending a very large amount of money for reparations to black people for things that might have happened 150 years ago, you know. And at what point do we say history is history and can we move on? Do we need to keep pointing out the fact that slavery was something that was prevalent in the country? But I mean, we had a war about that. There was laws passed and black people were freed. Why do we need to keep bringing it up?
Well, I think one of the reasons people keep bringing it up because they think that they was do certain things and they was deprived of those things. My feeling about that is this. I think that history is something that's going to go down and we need to accept it as history.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that we can ever pay money that will ever satisfy whatever it was that you lost out on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that money may very well help some people that desperately have a need for it, but I wouldn't want to go down that road because there's going to be everybody want to jump on the bandwagon.
Mm.
And I don't see that that's the way that should be. I think that it should be held if the states taken where, and I think it was in, it was either Oklahoma or either it was Kentucky. They took some land that belonged, that was like a portion of the town that was owned and occupied by black people. They showed this probably about 5 or 6 months ago that they had, and the state finally recognized to turn the land back over that they taken from those black folks that owned that and give that back.
And how many years prior did the town take that land?
Oh, it was probably in the 40s, I guess.
All right, so very few people that were alive now
Right.
were affected by that,
Right.
right? Or do you think that
There was ancestors and stuff that still live today that knew about what we did. I mean, it was a very business community that you had all these black people that was these businessmen that was running this, and they had all this and they owned all that, and the town taking it away from them.
So do you think that that's a good thing? What happened?
Well, I think the fact that the town taking some land that didn't belong to them, and I think that giving that land back, yeah, I think that's right.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as people going in and saying, you know, they want to receive some restitution for, you know, back when my ancestors, you know, they had this or that and they taken this or that from them. I don't think you can go back. It's the same way that I think you need to spend your time on production, productivity. When you started going back and trying to bring up something, there's too much going on there for you to try to resolve that. It's the same way right now. You have to look at history as being history. And the things that happened was history. We should learn from that and not try to go back and rectify it. And this is what a lot is being done in this country, trying to rectify. They go out here and they take General Lee down. They take the statue of this one down. They take the statue of that one. Now they got the military bases that was named after this. Now Fort Bragg, for instance, is now going to call Fort Liberty. Mm-hmm. They go back and change that.
Do you think those are good things?
Oh, no, I don't think they're good things at all. Going back, changing these names and so forth. That is history. Mm-hmm. It is history. Why
But
do we?
I'm going to play devil's advocate again, though. There may be some people that say, yeah, it's history, but I don't want the Adolf Hitler Museum in, Germany because he named something after him. He was a bad man and it was a bad time, and let's get rid of his name.
That's the same thing they're saying. Look at Faneuil Hall. Same thing right here in Boston, right here in Massachusetts. They want to change the name of it because the guy was a slave owner. My point is this.
Mm-hmm.
We can say what we want to. We ain't going to change history. It is there. And the facts are there. It is never going to be wiped away.
So do you think people are oversensitive today when they see, or nobody would have even cared unless somebody made an issue of it? Is that what? Or do you think,
I think
like, I didn't know Faneuil Hall. I didn't even know who it was named after.
the thing is, people has come to the point that they think that there was slave masters that was buying up property and name after this, name after that, just like you had the white that was taking slave and having children with slaves and so forth and so on. Well, here again, history is going to be history. There's going to be things that we ain't going to like about history, and there's no if and buts about it. There's things that we disagree about as far as history go. But the fact of the matter is, it's history. Now, if there's something that I agree with is the fact that when they taken our rights away to be a human being, now here you're getting into something that I think that, yeah, we ought to be fighting for, because we are human beings. We are not material. We are not equipment. But as you well know, the Congress counted property that we as human beings, that they counted that property and said this is the representation of this state or whatever the case is. This is how the seats are set up in the Congress as to how many representatives you have from each state and so forth and so on, because they was counting us as property. No, we were not property. We were human beings, just like they were.
Right.
So that type of stuff, yes, you need to correct that.
Yeah.
There's no ifs and buts about that. You need to correct that. But when it comes to the fact that we're going to go out here and try to change history by changing the name does not change history.
Right.
What it does is make history. You take and change the name and you add something else to it, then there's a remark or explanation as to why this was done. So that's the reason this was changed in history back in certain date.
So, now, speaking of history and being taught things, in school today they have this thing called the critical race theory, which you've probably heard of. What do you think of critical race theory, which in a sense is supposedly hurting a lot of white people's feelings because they feel like they're being shamed or guilted into sins of their ancestors?
Well, I think that here again, you're going back trying to correct something that is history. You're going back and coming up now and saying these things about what happened back when, and we're saying that, oh, this shouldn't have been done because this was wrong. Well, it may be wrong in the eyes of those today, but maybe at the time it was not wrong in the eyes of those. You cannot be responsible what your ancestors did back when.
Right.
Because if we did that, we have blame all over the world, blaming everything on everything, and that's all we would be concentrating is blaming.
But it is important to recognize there are consequences for those things.
There are consequences, and there are things that we should understand as to maybe why those things were done. And we shouldn't carry a guilty conscience about what somebody did and to say that it's because of your race. No, it's not because of the race. the race could be Caucasian, blacks, African, or whatever. The race didn't do anything. It's the individuals that did things that you disagree with or you dislike or whatever. It's not the race. It's the individual. It's like all whites ain't racist. All whites ain't good. All blacks, Chinese, whoever it is, you got the in-between, and you got people that care about people in a way that sometimes we don't understand why people care the way that they care. There are good nature hearts in this world, and we need to understand that. But we get caught up on the semantics about stuff that we lose the picture and the insight of who we are, what we are here for, and what we should try to be doing in making this a better universe than what it is today. And that's where I come in and say, listen, we can't solve the world crisis, but we should do our part in trying to help to do the right thing. It's just like here in Littleton. Littleton is a nice community. I love Littleton, and I think that Littleton has a good quality about this town and its people. And you can't always say that, you know, there's a good quality overall about every place you've been, because there are places that got worse conditions than what they good is there. And here in Littleton, I find that we have such a good pool of people that people truly care here in Littleton. And that's worth a whole lot. To me it is, to know that you have a community that reaches out and cares and want to do the right thing and try to do the right thing. And that, I say, Littleton probably has a far edge in comparison with some other communities.
Oh, that's great. Well, our time is just about up for this discussion, but I really appreciate the conversation, the dialogue. It's important to have these conversations, just to hear each other out and understand where people are coming from. But in the end, as you said, you know, it's important that, you know, we treat people with respect and just, you know, as humans. You know, it seems basic that we would even have to bring that up. But that's the way it is, I guess. But
well, you know, you have to live and learn. That's the way I look at it, you know. And I think you need to do more learning than we do on the living side of it, because sometimes people just go out there and they get in left field out there and they don't know how to get back to the center. And I just think that sometimes we need to be active about doing what's right. And for instance, is much history that the state of Massachusetts has. Now they're talking about bringing the all-black, I don't know if you heard or not, all-black college into Boston. So they're hyped up there in Boston, looking forward to bringing the all-black college into Boston, and I think that's good, because you know Roxbury, you know, has a history, in Dorchester, you know, has a history there, and you know, they want to fill that portion of the community and saying that, you know, we have this, you know, and they have it in places in the South. So, you know, I think that the best thing that I can say about some of the things that happen to black children is that we've had, and I haven't seen this from black people that are rich, okay? But I've seen it from white people that are rich. I remember the banker in Georgia went to the school and told the ninth grade, Say you finish high school and you got a full 4-year college that is fully paid for when you graduate from school. So, you know, there are things that like that, okay? I think he's doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's better to give than it is to receive. So he has money, you can't take it with you. So he figured if I can help educate and be a part of helping society and people become more productive in society, then this is well spent money in doing that. And the teaching of that to them is that now you go and help somebody else. And you don't have to give it back to me. You just go and help somebody else. And I think the theory behind going and helping somebody else will go a lot further than we realize. We just have to apply ourselves in doing stuff and helping people.
That's great. I guess one final thought would be February, Black History Month. Is there anything special that you do or that you like to do during this month to kind of make it stand out or to recognize the fact that, you know, do you visit museums or do you have a day that you do something with your family, or how do you celebrate a month like this?
Well, you know, I celebrate like coming here, which is the biggest thing that I do during the month of February. And I reflect over history, and I try to tell my children, you know, what Black history is about, what it means, what are the things that you have the privilege that I didn't have the privilege to do. And you're fortunate to have the privilege to do the things that you're doing today that I didn't have the privilege to do when I was growing up. So you need to be thankful that these privileges that you have today are not the days that I had. And basically just let them be appreciative and thankful for what they have, the parents they have, for the stuff that, you know, we do for them. And, you know, it's just like most children, not all, but most children, they're given so much, their parents give them so much, where when the parents, in a lot of cases, grew up, they didn't have that. You have that today. And the reason being is that they want to try to let you understand how it is to have and have not. I often tell my children, don't waste any food. There are children around the world that don't have any food. So, you know, take what you eat, eat what you take. If you want to taste it, just get a little bit, but don't waste it.
Right, taste it, don't waste it. That's good. Well, George, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
I really appreciated this, and who knows when the next time we'll sit down for Black History Month is, or any other topic, but we hope you enjoyed kind of listening in on our conversation here, and thanks for watching, and you have a good night or evening or afternoon or wherever you're watching this. Take care.